Hello my friends, my name is Artur and I am an Estonian YouTuber. Today we are studying history. Yes, a history very closely connected to my country, Estonia. Turns out that the Nuremberg Trials, the SS soldiers of Germany were guarded by Estonians. Did you know this? I remember studying this in our history class in Estonia in middle school, I think. I have heard about this before, but now Mark Felton Productions uploaded a video detailing this. I haven't watched the video, but many of you guys sent me the video saying that, oh, you should watch it, it's very cool. It talks about your country. Well, we are doing this today. I know it will get demonetized, so I might as well say what I think and say how things really were and name people as they really were, cause this video is not gonna make any money. Another thing, do you notice the background, right? It's pink and it's a nice closet and everything. This is my new place. I picked it because I like it. I like this style. And you guys have been saying that, oh, your new room looks like you're living with your grandma. Are you okay? Are you living with your grandma? Hey, let me tell you guys, if your grandmas in America live like that, it's really cool. I think I like it. I like the pink. I like the vibe in this room. But I didn't get the grandma thing because in Estonia, grandmas live like they used in the Soviet Union. Not like this. No pink rooms in the Soviet Union, my friends, no. So if your grandmas live like that, that's a compliment for the American country. But okay, let's dive into the video.
Between November 1945 and April 1949, a series of war crimes trials were convened in the bomb-ravaged German city of Nuremberg. The most famous was the first trial, that concluded on the 1st of October 1946 with the top German leaders taken prisoner at the end of the war, including Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe and Hitler's successor since 1941.
Bekenne mich im Sinne der Anklage nicht schuldig.
Not guilty.
Karl Dönitz, head of the Navy, and the man Hitler appointed his successor after Göring's fall from grace, and Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy, until he flew to Scotland on an alleged peace mission in 1941.
Rudolf Hess.
Nein.
In all, 24 former leaders were tried, 2 committed suicide in prison, and 10 were executed by hanging, while most of the others received long prison sentences. Further trials.
They were hung. That raises a question. They used hanging back then, but already electrical chairs and death shots have been invented. Do they use hanging today as a death method? They have death sentence in America, right? In Texas. What do they use? A shot? Like an injection, right? There's an injection. 3-part injection, if I'm correct. They have it in China, but I know what they use in China. They use a good old-fashioned gun. Officially, they don't carry them through in Russia, but that's the official statement. I mean, they also use the gun and sometimes a baseball bat.
Trials at Nuremberg were conducted by the US. 12 trials of high-level German officials of the Nazi government, military and SS, as well as medical professionals and leading industrialists. 199 people in total were tried at Nuremberg's Palace of Justice. 161 were convicted and 37 received the death penalty.
37 dead, 161 convicted, and... Wait, so somebody was even not guilty? The Nuremberg Palace of Justice. This is what every courthouse should be called in the world. Palace of Justice. You do something wrong, you are invited to the Palace of Justice, where justice will be served upon you. Sounds cool, doesn't it?
But you may be interested to know that guarding these war crimes suspects was largely in the hands of former SS soldiers and not American troops. This is the extraordinary story of the SS who guarded the Nuremberg trials. The Palace of Justice was one of the few remaining relatively intact buildings in Nuremberg in 1945 when the city fell to advancing US forces. It was decided to hold the International Military Tribunal in the city because it was the symbolic home of Nazism, where the great pre-war rallies had been held.
Yeah, they always want, if a great war concludes with Germany or France, it has been almost not a meme but a pattern in history. When the First World War ended, German diplomats were humiliated with the entire country in a train car, in a train wagon. I don't know how you call it in English. It was a specific train, and when Hitler occupied France in the Second World War, he sought out the very same train to force French to surrender. In the very same train, the French humiliated the Germans in the First World War. So there was payback. And now it's the Nuremberg, home of the Nazis, which is used for the Nuremberg Trials. It seems a little bit like this attitude, haha, you lost, hey, we're in the same city as you started and you lost, boo, in your face. It sounds like that a little bit. Hey, don't get me wrong, I'm on the side of the West, it's just a bit funny.
The building was large enough to host such a massive trial and handily had its own prison to the rear to house the accused. Security would be paramount, both around and inside the court, and to prevent the accused from committing suicide or escaping. Regular US troops were assigned to guard the Palace of Justice, drawn from the 26th Infantry Regiment. Other units were military police. All men wore a special shoulder patch that incorporated the only swastika to appear on Allied uniforms, showing...
Oh, there's like a lock and a swastika, they're locking up the Nazis. This is really genius. And this is the only one ever. Good to know, I didn't know this. They used it in Allied patches. I think this patch might be worth quite a lot nowadays.
The swastika being symbolically weighed on the scales of justice.
Oh.
However, a new unit was to be added to the Nuremberg Trials Guard detail to help the US Army secure not only the Palace of Justice, but a whole series of buildings throughout the city connected with the trials. Incredibly, this unit was raised from the remnants of a Waffen-SS unit. In 1940, the Soviet Union had invaded and occupied the three Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia. Stalin imposed full communist rule upon them, as well as the full force of the Soviet police state, carrying out mass deportations in 1941 of, quote, enemies of the people, unquote.
These enemies of the people were including my grandfather, who was deported actually with the second wave of deportations and cleanings, Stalin's purges in 1949 and 1941. He was deported in 1949 to Siberia. He was 4 years old only. And the enemies of the people, enemies of the state by Stalin were wealthy Estonian farmers. Anyone who had a little bit more wealth, materialistic wealth, were enemies of the workers, the rich. Well, the family of my grandfather was just very hard working, so they worked their fields and they sold their crops, so they got a little bit more extra, but they were still farmers, just regular farmers. Just they lived good because they worked hard. Boom, immediately to Siberia. My grandfather's father was actually shot immediately, but grandfather was deported because I guess they didn't shoot babies. Who else were the enemies of the state? Famous musicians, politicians, anyone almost with a higher education. If they had made a name to themselves, they were the enemy of the Workers' Party who had no education. Higher degree, if you have a university degree, boom, you go to Siberia. If you were just rich, you were enemy of the state. Kulak was the rich farmer called, not Gulag, but Kulak, yes, that's the name of the rich farmer, the enemy of the Soviet peoples, and just a rich city person, just boom, immediately to Siberia. And this is how Stalin purged the entire culture and entire workforce that is worth anything in the Baltic states. And by that, Stalin did not only purge the countries and the enemies of the state, he actually purged the DNA of those three Baltic states, because all of the culture, all of the geniuses, all of the smart people, educated people were sent away not to give any offspring. So the DNA was also purged.
Unsurprisingly, many of the citizens of these nations wanted independence.
That's Stalin,
When the
Estonia.
Germans conquered the Baltics, later in 1941, they were greeted by many as liberators.
Oh yeah. See, this is how Estonians welcomed the Nazis into Estonia. Can you believe that? Everybody in the West sees the Nazis as the enemies. We also see them as the enemies. But I have told you many times before, comparing to the Soviet Union, the Nazis didn't even compare. You have no idea what the Soviets did, how bad that was. I know if you're a Jewish, if you're Polish, I understand Nazis did very horrible things. But for Estonians, it was the Soviets who truly just killed anybody they wanted, who made mass executions, rape and everything, looting. And if the Nazis came, they didn't do these things to us. They occupied our country, they made their own laws, they made their own military order here. But as to Estonians, they didn't see us as pests, as Stalin did. Just Estonians, wipe it off the map. But Nazis didn't do that to us. Of course, they are the empire of the pure evil. That's what I'm saying. But to open up this clip for you, if you see Estonians cheering and welcoming the Nazis, then now you know why they did it. Because compared to the Soviets, it seemed like the sun is going to shine again. Could you imagine some people welcoming the Nazis like that? I don't think so.
Although the Germans did not grant independence, many Baltic state citizens were virulently anti-communist and collaborated actively with the Nazis.
Yeah.
In the summer of 1942, the Waffen-SS raised the Estonian Legion, which by March 1943 had a strength of 970 men.
Estonian Legion, their music and their emblems have also carried over to our military nowadays. And you know why else Estonians preferred the Nazis to fight with the Nazis is because Estonians didn't want to be with the Nazis or with the Soviets. They wanted their own country. We wanted our own independence, which we got later, almost 100 years later. But back then, Nazis allowed the Estonian Legion, which was the only occupied military unit of Estonia, to be allowed to carry our own blue, black and white on our uniforms. We were under the Nazi regime, under the Nazi soldiers, allowed to carry our own flag, our own nationalist symbols, which was much better than to carry the red flag and the Lenin picture on your freaking forehead. Of course people would pick the Nazis. You could fight under your own flag. You could be more Estonian. But yeah, this was all an illusion. All the Nazis wanted to do to us was just to occupy another country, brainwash them and make them puppets, which they did. Estonians follow orders quite good. Unfortunately, I have to say, not a very rebellious nation nowadays. I'm quite sure he would talk about this. I want to bring this up. Estonians follow orders. They pick up new regimes quite good because we have been occupied so much.
It was progressively expanded to a brigade and then a division, partially recruited by conscription. As a division, it fought on the Eastern Front against the Soviets from February to September 1944. In the meantime, in August 1941 onwards, the Germans had recruited Latvians into the Schutzmannschaften, auxiliary police battalions, which by 1944 numbered over 40. In February 1943, Hitler ordered the formation of the Latvian Volunteer Legion and subsequently 2 Waffen-SS divisions, the 15th and 19th Waffen-SS Grenadier Divisions, each of 15,000 men, were founded. Fast forwarding to the end of the war in May 1945, the remnants of these Latvian and Estonian SS units found themselves surrendering to American and British troops. They became DPs.
Yeah, lucky them to be surrendered to the Americans and the British, because if you surrender to Russians, to the Soviets, you know what happened to you. Again, I will open up the other side of the Iron Curtain for you a little bit, because maybe you Americans might not know this. But if the Soviets caught you, you know, Estonians were mobilized to the Soviet army when the Soviets occupied us. Then the Nazis came, they were forcefully mobilized to the Nazi army. And then when the Soviets came back, you know what they did? They asked you if you served in the Nazi army. Of course you had to say no, but if you said yes, they shot you immediately. If you said no and it turned out you did actually serve in the Nazi army, they shot you immediately. And they found out because they were good at this. So basically you had to serve both armies, but if the Soviets came, they shot you immediately if you served with the Nazis. And then they deported the whole country for 2 times. So this is what the Soviet Union did, and compared to the Americans, if you surrendered to Americans, all that happened to you was you were put into a prison camp and fed properly. You were not shot immediately, you were not tortured, your families were not murdered. So I would run a few countries to be able to surrender to the Americans, actually, not to surrender to the Soviet Union.
Or displaced persons, as to return to the Baltic states then under Soviet occupation again would have meant deportation to Siberia or even execution. But there was no home for them in Western Europe either. They lived in shabby camps or in woods and barely subsisted. A group of Estonian SS officers decided to approach the Americans with an offer. The Americans were happy to accept and enthusiastically use Estonians and other Baltic citizens. Why? Well, immediately after the war, huge numbers of US servicemen were demobilized under the point system and sent stateside. the army reducing massively in size. It was also busy concluding military operations in the occupation zones of Germany and guarding against a future Soviet invasion of Western Europe. The US Army officially declared that recruiting former Waffen-SS soldiers from the Baltic states was okay, because although the SS were an outlawed paramilitary organization, the US understood that Estonian and Latvian soldiers had served in it as conscripts and not...
Yeah, the US understood it, the Soviet Union did not. They shot us immediately, but the Americans hired us immediately. See how different these two states are. One of them finds opportunity, America, and other one sees pests that have to be eliminated. Of course Estonians would pick America. Even nowadays we have picked America in everything, in culture, music, language, everything. We look up to America in Estonia. Maybe some people won't admit it, but this is how it is. I've lived in America. I see that Estonia is copying a lot of patterns from USA, which is okay, because we have been tortured so much on the other side that we feel quite good to be here now. But my friends, with this, we will now carry on with the Estonian Youtuber Cup. Look at this, the Estonian Youtuber Magnificent Cup. This will keep you healthy in this crazy time we have right now. You get this cup, you will never be sick. Welcome back, my friends, to the Hall of Fame. Behind me you can see 3 boards. In every board there are names of the countries and states represented in the Estonian Youtuber Cup competition. You get the cup, I put the points behind your state or country, and you bring pride to your hometown and home state. We have a dude called Edgar Blum. Edgar, many dudes in Estonia are called Edgar nowadays, and even back in the time, 100 years ago, also they named people Edgar, so it could be an Estonian name. You are from Reading, Pennsylvania. What are you reading, Edgar? We have a citizen called Mario Petrosa. I try to make it sound like Italian. Mario, it's me, Mario Petrosa, Petrosa, spaghetti. Tell me in the comments if you are Italian, you gotta be. Your hometown is called Princeton Meadows. Oh, it sounds like a fairyland. Where do you live? I live in the Meadows. The Princeton Meadows. It's in New Jersey. We have a citizen called Chris Kernock. He's from a state that hasn't gotten any orders for I think 5 videos now, but it's Houston, Texas. Houston is a huge town in Texas, right? If you live in Houston, leave the F in the chat below for respect. North Dakota has 34, Texas has 28. We have 6 more cups to be tying, and then the Texas will take the lead again if North Dakota doesn't get any more orders. We have Kenneth Arbol. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Way to go, Pennsylvania. Already 19, 2 orders in this video. Way to go. We have Austin Talon. But Austin is also a city, right? In Texas. Oh, city. Austin, Texas, yeah. But you're Austin Taylor and you're not from Texas. You're from Payson, Arizona. I always remember that Raising Arizona movie with Nicolas Cage. Funny as hell, love that movie. Now we have a very strange name called Melik Lewishall. I think Melik is a Jewish name, correct me if I'm wrong. And you are also from Arizona, but the city is different, it's called Prescott. So Arizona and Pennsylvania both got 2 orders in this video. This was today's Estonian Youtuber Cup competition. You wanna drink green tea or coffee with me? I don't think you should drink anything else when you watch my videos. Go and get the cup, put something delicious inside of it. For example, like this dude who drinks rum with my videos. Or this nice little soldier here who is ready to battle the day with me. So go and get the cup, be like them. Back to the video. But we also have more people to name. We have actually Patreons who truly help this channel grow, who elevate this channel and make it possible for me to do videos in every situation, every financial situation. I will name you 3 new names who truly have made a sacrifice to keep this channel running. Ben Fries. Thank you, Ben Fries. I gotta make a stupid joke though. Is French fries your son or brother? We have Mr. Michael Hill, and we have a cool name called Osmin Magia. Osmin Magia. This is definitely not an American name. This is Osmin Magia. I couldn't even name. I think not Europe. No, not Europe. Somewhere else. Thank you, Osman Mejia. This video is so damn interesting. I wish they would make more about this. Directly connected to my country. Recently I haven't done that much videos about Estonia, but I do love it and I hope to make it more. I will see how you guys react to it, how many views it gets, but I do hope many.
That Estonian and Latvian soldiers had served in it as conscripts and not as ideological volunteers, which is partly true, though a hard core of anti-communists had volunteered to fight for the Germans. The Estonians and Latvians were in a terrible position, unable to return home but unable to survive as displaced persons, so volunteering was the one way out of this terrible situation. The US already had Polish and other Eastern European units in its civilian labor corps, but not former SS. The first Estonian unit consisted of only 17 men who guarded the Nuremberg US Army canteen and headquarters. American officers were so impressed by the Estonians that permission was granted to form a full guard company. 300 Estonians, 92% of whom were former Waffen-SS soldiers, were
Estonians have been occupied so much throughout the last 1,000 years by everybody that we actually, I'm quite embarrassed to say this, but we do follow orders quite good. If we're ordered to do something, if we see opportunity in it to serve somebody, we can do it quite good and impress them, and they are very pleased with us. That's why everybody wanted Estonia also, because it's on the Baltic Sea. It's a very good position to carry on your trade routes, but also Estonians as a people back in the feudal times, when you depended on how good your farmers were, Estonians were really hard working, and they still are. So everybody wanted to occupy Estonia to get the crops of these farmers, to govern over these farmers, because they put out quite good crop yields. They paid their taxes. And this carries out to this trial where, you know, Estonians volunteer and they are really good, and of course they impress Americans, and Americans put more Estonians to the job, and this is how it carries on. And even nowadays it is like that. Unfortunately, we as a nation haven't, even now with 30 years of freedom, still we haven't learned how to be truly free. I sometimes feel we still serve some nation, we still serve somebody. We are so used to a foreign oppressor that we don't know how to be our own masters yet. Some people know it, some people don't. As a nation, we definitely don't. But yes, here you can see how we Estonians, we quite good follow orders.
Sent to Mannheim for 2 months training in US military drill, weapons and practices. On Christmas Eve 1946, the Estonian Guard Company 4221 was officially founded. Commanded by former SS Hauptsturmführer Vitre, the company was formed of 6 armed platoons and a staff platoon. Each 40-man guard platoon consisted of 4 squads, and the 30-man staff platoon consisted of medics, drivers, supply clerks, cooks, carpenters and mechanics.
I'm gonna be honest with you, these men were the enemies of the US, they were the Waffen-SS soldiers, but I'm quite sure after this, if they saw how the US treated them, if war would break out with the Soviet Union, these men, they would fight with the US, and you wouldn't even distinct that they are Estonians, they would fight so fiercely. Estonians are quite loyal. Americans didn't know it back then, but they didn't have a problem. They didn't have a problem at all.
Standard uniform were black Eisenhower jackets with a white belt and a blue M1 helmet liner. A special badge with the Estonian national colours was worn. Primary armament was the US M1 carbine. Latvian Guard Company was also formed along the same lines, again with almost exclusively former Waffen-SS grenadiers. The Estonian and Latvian troops were nearly all fluent in English and German, making them particularly useful in guarding the Nuremberg Trials, and they were based in the former Reichspartei barracks behind the old Nazi Party rally grounds in the city. US soldiers from the 26th Infantry Regiment manned the security checkpoints into the Palace of Justice and also provided guards in the courtroom and the prison, and escorted the prisoners to and from their cells and mounted suicide watch on them. Estonian Guard Company 6221 guarded the exterior of the courthouse and patrolled the perimeter. They also guarded the attached prison and various storage depots for petrol, coal, ammunition and food, guarded the YMCA and the...
As you can see, ammunition and food, it's very important, and only 1 year before, these Estonian soldiers were shooting at the US soldiers, and now they're guarding their ammunition. This is how you can see what Estonians are like. You see them, they're quiet, they're trustworthy, you see that there's no threat from them. And this is how we usually are. But if you piss us off for a long time, then people see the good qualities in us and they will use it, which is horrible. 1,000 years we have been occupied for it, but now the US sees the opportunity in it. You know, US is an opportunist nation. Capitalism has to be, it's like business, you have to grab on to everything you have to make it work for you, which is in any way better than the Soviet Union. Don't get me wrong, this is good, I like it. This is what they saw. Estonians were an opportunity to be used. Estonians gained from it also. This is a win-win situation here. But it's such a weird thing. This is the enemy, you know, with the quotes, the Estonians, the SS. Now they're guarding the ammunition. That says a lot about our nation.
The swimming pools and residences used by US and Allied prosecutors, judges, and senior US officers at the Nuremberg Trials. Many had day-to-day contact with Nazi prisoners, which seems extraordinary considering the Estonians' background, but US officers consistently reported on the company in the highest possible terms. During the Berlin airlift, when Stalin tried to force the Americans, British and French to give up their occupation zones in West Berlin by cutting off food and fuel to the millions of Germans living there, the Estonian company was transferred to the forest near the border between the main US occupation zone in Western Germany and the Soviet zone, where they secured the most important field storage centers of the US Army before transferring to Stuttgart to guard the local US Corps headquarters. Thereafter, the members of the Estonian Guard Company left US service, and many emigrated to the US, Canada, Belgium, Sweden and Australia.
I have, when I lived in Hollywood for 3 years, I went to Estonian house a lot, and these are the first generation Estonians. Now there are 3 generations. These were the first generation Estonians to go to America and Canada. And in Estonian house there are 80 years old Estonians, 92-year-old Estonian who was in the Nazi army. I've spoken to these men personally, and they are happy men. They are truly happy men. They were lucky to be surrendered to Americans, not to the Soviets, who would have shot them immediately. Now they have lived a very long and healthy life in America and in Canada. Of course, every last one of them misses Estonia. If Estonian flag is shown, I sang a lot of songs to them because I love singing and I love my country. I sang the songs to them. They cried, they stood up, they marched. You could see that these are the old school type of people from the 30s living in Estonia, in free Estonia. Back then Estonia was once free before. And they're different Estonians than Estonians nowadays. Oh, this was such a good video. I want to make more of this. I love talking about my country because nobody knows about Estonia. Nobody has heard about it. We're such a small country with insignificant people and nobody cares. But I do care. So I want to talk about it and I love talking about it. But usually videos like this, when I talk about my country, don't get many views. That's why I haven't made them, because people really don't click on them, which makes me sad. But I'm glad I got to do this one. My friends, I will try to upload for you every day. It takes quite a lot of time to do these videos, but I am able to do them now. Maybe I'm not able to do them later because, you know, life will begin again. But now I will try to do them every day. If you like them, be back every day. Press the bell button also, otherwise you won't be notified. YouTube doesn't send out some of my videos because it thinks they are not monetizable or they're not family friendly. For example, I talked about the Nazis here. Of course, YouTube is not going to send it out. But if you want to see them, I think the bell button works for that, so press it. Go and get the cup, become a patron, and as always, my friends, until my next video, stay cool and bye-bye.